We're early because I set
we're
the
earlier
thing
than you
for
said.
7:15.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said last week around 6 o'clock.
Yeah. So we apologize. It was beyond our control. We're sorry. No, we're not sorry.
We're not sorry.
No, it's beyond our control.
Yeah.
No, nobody wins.
Deal with it.
Nobody wins from apologizing.
No.
There's no apologies.
No, that's the one thing we've learned.
What I will do right now is I'll apologize to you, sir, for not having a drink.
Yeah, what are you doing?
I'm sorry.
What are you doing?
I'll go get it.
First you make us late, and
I'll
then
get us a undisclosed cold beverage that may or may not be alcoholic.
no, it's
May or may not be of a brand. We won't mention what brand it is.
it's a sugary pop.
Sugary pap.
It's a sugary pop.
It's pap.
I'm very confused right now as to why the article that I'm trying to pull up won't come up, because it was literally just up minutes ago.
Oops.
Why is Streamlabs always wonky? What do you
Just to
like?
mess with us, I suppose.
Well, first you make us late, then you don't get the pops ready,
Listen.
and now you're making Streamlabs mess up.
Listen.
What's going on, man?
I think it might be.
Are you okay?
Maybe we're in a different universe.
We could be in a different
We got
universe.
sucked into a black hole.
Sometimes that happens.
You know what? How do you know? They could be everywhere. Black holes could be everywhere. We could have driven.
There it is.
We could have driven through one. Boom, we're into another universe.
Maybe.
Everything seems the same, but there's like one different thing.
All right.
Maybe in this universe, like
Joe Biden.
Pop rocks isn't a thing. Joe Biden, he's still a thing, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, maybe not for much longer, because he kind of looks like a dead person. We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He says Vladimir Putin is not joking when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons, because this military is, you might say, significantly underperforming, which may or may not be propaganda. We don't really know. But this is weird to me. Like, were they saying this during the Cuban Missile Crisis? Like, in the were they going, was like the president at the time going and saying, like, yep, the Soviets are going to launch nukes? Or were they playing it more like this is a risk? Right? 'Cause obviously, it was a risk. They were.
No, actually, I do think
they were doing drills and stuff.
I do think
schools.
they were really.
But were they trying to like calm people down instead of rile them up? Was there not an attitude in the political class? It's like, we're gonna do everything we can to avoid war. This feels like he's trying to do it.
Well, he sure is.
They're trying to make this happen.
Well, it's with anybody. I think he's just the type. He's not the type to like calm people down or have good leadership skills or any of that kind of stuff. He's just gonna rile people up, right? Yeah. He's gonna scare people and into trying to have them form into the Team Biden line, right?
Yeah. You just see recently that U.S. official, I don't remember his name or the significance of him, who basically stated that the United States' goal is to defeat Russia in Ukraine, which is...
Was that Blinken?
What?
Was it Blinken, maybe?
I have no idea. I just know Tipple was talking about it on his show, or maybe it's one of his videos. I don't remember. But basically, the United States has technically, officially come out and said that it's their goal to defeat Russia, which is like just an admission that you're a war.
It's a proxy war, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit more than a proxy war. You don't admit that you're at war in a proxy war so much. That's why it's a proxy war, right? Like you're doing this over here, which is impacting this over there. That's what makes it by proxy. Now it's like they're basically just saying, yeah, we're giving weapons to Ukraine because we want to defeat Russia. That feels like an escalation.
Well, yeah.
That feels like poking the bear.
I think now they just know they can't really hide anything. It's all the information's out there, whether they want it to be or not. So they just, I think maybe they're just trying to now flex and say, "Oh yeah, we know what we're doing. We're doing this on purpose." When they were trying to sneak around and
I think they want a war. I think everything is culminating to a war. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of the financial crisis is orchestrated. Certainly, some of it seems to be, but at any point, it feels like the political class is panicking about it, and they don't know what to do. They can't control inflation. The inflation report that came out in August was showing progress, and they were saying that inflation had peaked at that point, and that we were going to start moving in the right direction, and things it was about as bad as it was going to get at that point in time, is what they were saying. But then the report that came out or the data that came out in September was worse than was expected.
Yeah.
It did show inflation slowing down, but not as much as they were anticipating. Right. And so now I think we're at the point now. We'll see. I think next week we're going to see the next one. We'll see if this really is out of control.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I think they're starting to panic because they might be starting to think that it is out of control. And then they're like, shit, what do we do? And what's one way to get out of a situation? War.
Well,
war
is always good
inflation.
War is always good for business.
It's good for business. It's good for making money.
But
it's good for keeping power.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I think it's kind of contrived. All of it's contrived. I mean, right down to this hyperinflation. I think I don't know.
I think they do want to devalue the dollar.
Obviously, excuse me. Obviously, there's two different
savings accounts.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Happy. I mean, either they've planned this out or they're inept. That's one or the other.
It could be both.
It could be, maybe.
It could be both.
Maybe they're missing the plan. Maybe this wasn't the plan.
There could be warring factions in the elite. There could be the one that the World Economic Forum side at things, and then there might be like a more. But even then, who other than Elon Musk in the elite class is pushing for more of a libertarian perspective?
Yeah.
Donald Trump,
like
maybe,
like vocally. I mean, so. Yeah, I know nobody's vocally doing it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think when you look back in history and stuff, you can see that this kind of stuff is cyclical. It happens. It repeats itself, sort of. But I think the only reason why it seems more hyper now is because information is there just readily on the ready, right? And you have all kinds of differing perspectives. Like before, you used to have maybe 4 or 5 different sources of the news, and they were all kind of speaking the same language to some degree.
Yeah, and you
didn't. You have all kinds of independent.
You didn't know when they were lying to you.
Right.
Now they're like they're basically just spitting in your face.
Yeah, and now now we've seen for years the same narrative being spoken from all the different news media outlets, the major ones. What do they call it again?
The mainstream media.
Not mainstream. The legacy media.
The corporate media.
Yeah,
the legacy media.
Yeah. When they, now that they've been exposed that they do that, and they always have done that, because you can look back in history too. Now they have video of like them all doing that same thing where they're all speaking the same language, so they know
the same words.
Or the same words, everything.
Exact
it's like
same words. There was
a
one of the COVID news days. Someone had sort of made a compilation of local news stations all across the country. They were reading the same script.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a script because sure, you might have the media on one side of the country and another saying the same thing, but they're not using the same words necessarily.
Yeah.
They might be reporting the same news, the same information, but they don't always use the same words.
Yeah.
This was the exact same words.
Yeah, no, it's like a script.
Word for word,
they're
saying
the
script, same thing. There were these hundreds of journalists or news anchors saying the same thing. It's like, Jesus Christ, what's going on?
But because of that, I think... Excuse me. To my original point is that I think now we just think it's worse than it was. I think it's probably the same. The only things that change, would be like technology. Back in the day, there wasn't nuclear weapons weren't as much of a worry because only a couple different countries had them. Now you have like North Korea has them.
To Joe Biden's point, we haven't really had a nuclear crisis since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the big flex. It's always the big flex. I don't think anybody's going to use it. They'll use tactical ones. They'll use small tactical nukes.
But the problem with that is that puts us in a war.
Well, sure.
Now we're in a major war.
I don't
if
see it
anybody
happening.
uses a
Like, I
tactical
don't see
nuke.
any
So
big
it's
cities being hit or anything like that. It would be things like the Nord Stream 2, stuff like that, where you have industrial espionage or destruction of that kind of stuff. But I don't see it getting to a point where it's like, you know, you got nukes being dropped on civilians or in cities or areas like that.
You'll get
I don't
nukes on a military base or something, probably.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll have fallout from that, sure, obviously.
But you might also have retaliation on cities if you can't do anything else. Like, the problem is, it's so hard to say what some of these people will do. Like, how far is Putin willing to go? And that depends on how big of a risk he thinks that Russia is in of not being able to exist. And if they keep pushing, if the Western world keeps pushing, is like, I don't know that Putin has this mindset, but I think that Russia, or I think China, is a country that would blow up the world to, you know, as like before they fell.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but like, again, that could also be propaganda too. The fact that Putin's unhinged. Maybe he's not as unhinged as he's being made out to be either, you know? So, so I don't know. I don't know what to think.
Art here.
Oh, what's he saying?
He said a lot.
Of course, inflation's contrived as a result of expansionary money supply included with zero or near zero rates for an extended period of time, eventually when the money supply funnels. Yeah.
But it's like, why do they want this? What's the motive? I guess this is one of those things.
Yeah, banks and people are culpable. Yeah. Banks know they are lending to people who really can't afford the loan under normal interest rate circumstances, and people are blamed for getting themselves in.
So we've been listening to a lot of Tim Pool last couple of days. One of the points that he and like Luke always bring up is that these elites have a weird thing about overpopulation. They're always talking about how there's too many people,
right?
And so it's like, is there a push to get rid of people, like through poverty? Like, one of the things, I forget which, I think it's the United Nations, I'm pretty sure it's the United Nations, has said that basically already as is, without things getting any worse, something like 650 million or 350 million people, obviously in the developing world, are going to enter into a period of food uncertainty. Mm-hmm. These are people who are going to be at risk of starvation.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of people.
Yeah.
And so maybe a part of the reason why this is all happening in Ukraine is because they're a major exporter of what was the wheat that they export.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's actually war time. I mean, but it's not unrelated.
No, it's completely related.
I mean, you go to war. Well, you use these shitty situations.
It's distraction for other means. Well, they're trying to do other things.
But don't you think that if gas prices are high, which they're trying to blame on Russia, inflation is through the roof, so beyond gas prices, everything is more expensive. Yeah. So people are struggling more and more. Don't you think that might make people a little bit more likely to support a war effort? Because they'll see
if they can get behind the idea,
the economic upside to it.
No, but if they can get behind the idea that country is causing it,
or that even if, like, yes, that's obviously a major element that's going to get more people. If
and they get them. But
I think there's an element of, if you can convince people, hey, if we go to war, your situation will improve, even if it's not necessarily
how do you sell that? How do you frame that?
Well, it depends on how it is. Like, right now, it's going to be Russia caused all your problems, so let's go to war with Russia.
I think it's easier to say
that. But I think you could not simultaneously, but also get people to get behind it. If you like, if we invade, for example, if it's the United States, and like, if we invade Canada, then we're gonna be significantly richer because we're gonna get all their oil and we're gonna get their water.
I think honestly, you know what, man? I think it's simpler than that. I think it's with the whole woke culture right now. I think it's easier to sell them on the idea that atrocities are being done to the Ukrainian people, and we got to get behind
or any people.
And it doesn't matter what it costs. We got to throw all our resources at this Don't worry about the fentanyl problem we have in the country.
I don't think there's
fucking
enough
opioids or just the general despair of people after a fucking pandemic, and people are killing themselves. Don't worry about shit that's going on at home. In other words, let's worry about what's going on over there. Let's focus all our energy over there. And it's dangling the keys.
Yeah,
don't worry about what's going on here.
Such a small percentage of people are into that.
But it's not, though, because like if you think about it, there's so
true.
many people that won't say shit.
It's the small
just
percentage
go along.
of people that are loud.
Yeah.
And then those ones that are loud because they speak with such a moral righteousness in their voice. The maybe up to 60% of people who aren't really paying attention, they just side with that.
Honestly, you know what I would frame it as? I would say 10% of the population is one way. That those woke fucking 10% are that. Like would be even further than us as far as the type of people to be activists to do something against that kind of shit, and the other 80% lie right in the middle and
say something,
and they won't really say shit. They'll just go, I'm gonna just kind of keep my head down.
And most of them agree.
And they might. And I would say probably the majority of those 80%, maybe even 80% of those would agree with the side that we agree with, but just won't say really shit because they're like, it's not bad enough yet. I'll just pay $1.75 for a liter of gas.
I don't even know if that's. This is I'm very cynical when I see it this way, but I almost think that a significant amount of people are more concerned about what other people think of them. Mm-hmm. So it's not even about whether they agree or disagree with the point. It's that they're going to say and they're going to act in the way that they believe is going to get them social points.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's absolutely no more. Like, you and I might think, well, hold on, I'm not going to support that thing because I understand all the negative downsides. Even if you frame it in this way, like if you're going to call me, anti-woman's right misogynist for suggesting that we shouldn't do abortions after the baby's born, then I'm still going to hold that opinion. And I'm not going to let your words sort of, I'm not going to lie so that you then turn around and call me whatever I want to be called, call me a good person.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people they will. Yeah. Because they're more concerned about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Art even makes up a good point where he says about, the deflecting. Yeah, they're just deflecting, right? It's all like that's all war seems to ever have been in the last.
Art said that he believes that 25% of the wheat and grain supply is coming from Ukraine, which is that raises a lot of eyebrows about like why this is happening in Ukraine specifically. Like, sure, there's a history. There's a history between Russia or the Soviet Union and the region, but if they want to, cull a portion of the population.
Well, if you think about it this way, just think about it.
The food production.
Think about it the most sort of, trying to think how to frame this, but sort of the best case scenario war that this administration could get North America into. Let's say North America is realistically we're involved.
Entire West.
Yeah, involved exactly. Could get us all into, get us behind. So we could back it with feelings and all that shit. And what was the most lucrative to push their agenda, their green agenda, all this kind of thing? It would obviously be Russia. They've been doing this. Mm-hmm. They've been selling this narrative for years now that Russia's been colluding with, exactly, right? Russia. So it's I mean it's kind of an easy. It's almost an easy target in a way because Russia's been sort of depleted over the last couple decades, right? Yeah. So it's almost an easy target.
They have a simple economy. It's
you just stoke the fire.
Going back to like how contrived it is, Alex Jones. The war broke out in February. In like September of the previous year, so I guess last year, about a year ago, Alex Jones was saying there's going to be a war in Ukraine in February.
Yeah.
and then that happened. So it's like he either made a crazy prediction that just so happened to be right, or at some point or somewhere he got real information.
He's Nostradamus. He's our modern day Nostradamus.
He could be Nostradamus, or there are people in his ear who know things, who said things, and so that means that this was planned out much more than they would want us to think.
Think about it this way, to your point there. you got a guy like Alex Jones who's like fringe,
Yeah.
for the most part, fringe.
You
right?
can call him fringe.
Yeah,
because most people reject the kind of bombastic.
So if he knows the right kind of people that know the right kind of information, they could tell him shit.
Yeah.
And be like, I can just bounce shit off Alex Jones because nobody's really going to listen to him anyway, other than his fringe community, as far as the way they think. So he can say shit. He can look kind of crazy saying it, but then if it does come true, people aren't going to necessarily look back and go, "Oh yeah, Alex Jones said that a year ago," So you can just kind of say whatever you want to the fucking guy, and nobody's really going to 100% take him serious.
Well, that's the thing. People are saying that. People are saying Alex Jones said that.
No, I know.
It's the whole meme. The Alex Jones was right list.
Yeah. And I mean,
it's a place that you could put the information.
And what's it change?
And I also too wonder,
even if he says it doesn't change anything.
Because nobody's
really.
Everyone's just gonna
acting
be like,
on it.
"Oh, he's the crazy conspiracy."
It's not like anybody goes,
"He was right."
Oh, he was right that time. So next,
he was right all of those times.
Yeah, next thing he says, now we're gonna listen. We're gonna react to it,
or we're gonna take it a little bit more seriously, right? Yeah. Maybe we're gonna take the next thing that he says that sounds crazy a little bit more seriously because he got that last crazy thing right. But no, they don't do that.
And think about it this way: does it even matter anyway? Like, has anybody ever been accountable for anything in the last little while? When a government does something, they blatantly lie or they do something fucking atrocious.
Yeah, no one in power has been held accountable.
Nobody gets held accountable. That debacle.
Nancy Pelosi's husband got a DUI and just got let off.
That debacle of an exit of Afghanistan would have probably in the past gotten a president impeached.
Oh yeah.
And they would have just been like, "Fuck, get this fucking idiot out of here." Right, it would have been a scandal, but now it's like, so what? Yeah,
well, it's the double standard is so weird. How obvious it is now. Like, did you see that that crazy guy that ran down a teenager with his car, killed him?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay, so the story is there was a guy who ran down a teenager with his car, killed him, got arrested, and he said that the reason he did it was because the kid was a right or a Republican extremist. This was like 2 weeks after Joe Biden goes up and says that the MAGA Americans are like or the MAGA Republicans are the biggest threat to this country, since whatever. Then this guy goes and runs down this guy with his car. So for starters, if Trump said anything, he doesn't have to say that the Democrats are the biggest threat to America. He could say anything critical of the Democrats, and if somebody goes and then kills somebody and says that the reason that they did it is because they're a Democrat, what they're saying. They're saying that Trump incited this. No one said anything about that, about Biden, about this particular situation. But beyond that, this guy got let out on bail for like $50,000. So he committed murder, admitted to committing murder, did it for political reasons. Yeah. They let him out for $50,000 bail.
Yeah, you still have people from January 6th in prisons.
Well, Kyle Rittenhouse committed the most obvious act of self-defense that anyone has ever seen in the history of self-defense. Like, it's fucking crazy how disciplined this kid was.
It's all on camera, too.
Yeah, from the beginning. It was
exactly,
all on
that's what I mean.
But it was crazy how disciplined this kid was. His bail was like over $1 million. Mm-hmm. And they absolutely slandered this guy in the media. You didn't hear about this Democrat that ran this kid. CNN didn't do a story about it. MSNBC didn't do a story about it. No. You only hear it in like the alternative media where they're actually talking about these things. Mm. So it's like the double standard, man. It's fucking insane right now. It's in politics too, right? Like, so, like I was trying to allude.
Well, when one party essentially frames themselves as the the champions of the good guy of the good fight, the good guys, and the other is the pariahs and the evil.
Well, that's
but the problem is the
problem with the wokeism.
Well, the problem honestly is that conservative people by nature aren't very boisterous in their opinions necessarily. Like, they're more conservative. They'll sit back and sort of be like, okay, they're a little more, God-fearing and that kind of thing. So you really aren't going to get them kind of standing up.
I think the difference too is that attitude is, or those people are more inclined to the live and let live kind of
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, everyone else, the left is more like live my way or else.
Yeah, and when you indoctrinate a bunch of young people who really don't have anything to lose, they don't have, you know what I mean?
This is,
you indoctrinate them in
Lindsay,
this leftist. Now they get loud, right?
James Lindsay talks about this because I guess there's a paper that gets cited a lot in like left wing academia where they kind of outline. But it's stated very clearly in this paper, and James Lindsay brings this up. They say bluntly that all left-wing, all actions by the left-wing, whether it's violence or terroristic or whatever, must be tolerated because by definition it is for the correct goal. Mm-hmm. And all right-wing action, even if it's minor or whatever, must not be tolerated.
Yeah.
Because it's for the bad guy. Like, so this is straight up strategic.
Yeah. Well, did you see you probably saw this? What Sam Hunt even said about the Biden?
I don't know who Sam Hunt is.
Oh, he's like he's quite popular on the left end of the spectrum. But anyways, he was talking. He was doing a podcast and he was talking about the election and that, and he was talking about the Biden laptop and all that. And he goes, I don't care. He goes, I don't care if...
Oh, Sam Harris.
Oh, Harris.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah. So I don't care if he has kids in the basement.
I had that clip queued up for us to watch on the podcast, that the last one that we tried to do before when we had our internet issues. Yeah. We were going to talk about it.
How crazy is that, though, eh?
Yeah.
And he just basically...
He said Trump University is... but way worse than the
Biden thing, than all of his
the worst thing in the Hunter Biden laptop. It's like you're literally saying that worst case scenario, Trump committing fraud and scamming some people out of money, is worse than Joe Biden. It's not even that. That's being implicated in the biggest corruption scandal.
That's just asinine to say that. But what the real point of that, though, is when he says basically he doesn't give a shit what they did to subvert the election or the democratic process in order to get this.
It was the Trigonometry podcast.
Yeah, in order to get this bad man out of office. Like he's the worst. You got to do anything you can to get him out. I don't care if the fucking...
I don't care if you're lying. I don't care if you're censoring. Yeah. And so, that's what the guy...
What are you trying to say? You don't want democracy? Don't you want to let the
that
masses...
That is what he said.
Yeah, exactly. You want to let the...
That is what he said. And he was called out on it because I think Constantine said... I forget the exact quote, but he literally said... So, hold on a second. Let me get this straight. You're saying that you're okay with, information being kept from the public that might influence their vote, or something like that, and then he starts kind of stuttering and stumbling walking it back because you realize that's exactly what he said. But he still defended it afterwards. He made a Twitter thread about it.
Well, the weirdest thing about it is that nobody would say, "Oh shit!" Like you think whether you're left or right on your political views, that you would believe that one thing at least, that democracy should be preserved, right?
Yeah.
Fundamentally, but it's like it's not on the left side. It's not really a democracy anymore in their mind. It's more like, oh, we have to protect ourselves from the.
Wait, did you see that New Zealand, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, what she said?
Oh yeah.
She called like free speech a weapon of war. Yeah. She was basically calling for censorship because of misinformation. And watching Tim Pool's show where they were talking about this, they brought it up. They brought up the point very clearly. Most and significant, definitely the most significant examples of misinformation being spread in the public has come from the government. Whether you're talking, even going back into you talk about weapons of mass destruction, to get into what was it, Iraq or Iran or whatever. I'm at a loss. What else? Well, all the COVID stuff. Just that you got to do this, you got to do that. Like they've admitted since the COVID stuff that the 6 feet apart was completely arbitrary, made up, had no basis in reality.
Well, we talked about this before on the podcast. That was based on some kind of weird study. There was this weird.
It was literally like basically just a suggestion.
No. There was actually something that originated that. It was I forget how. Essentially, it was like a 14-year-old kid did this thing in high school or something, some kind of model where she did some kind of thing where she predicted that it would be like roughly 6 feet that people needed to stay, and they based it off that. I've read this whole article on it. It was stupid, but now I don't know 100% that's true because it hasn't been vetted, but that's where I heard that it came from. So it wasn't completely arbitrary that way. It was just more stupid than anything.
No, what I heard was it was completely arbitrary. It came from, or it was somebody in that position that said, basically said that like there was they had nothing supporting the idea. They just was like, everyone was just like, oh, that's a good idea, let's do that, and we'll say that it's science. But the problem is socialism that is destroying a capitalistic society. All of a sudden, to run a profitable business is crime. The younger have no frame of reference of communism like older generations from Europe have. To quote the truth of what is really going on from something I recently read, businesses now must hire legions of Karens to ensure there are enough people of the right gender and race as opposed to competence. Yep. Essentially worthless busybodies justifying their existence by bureaucratizing every move to assure that it's politically correct. Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues kind of going on right now in our corporate culture. Although there does seem to be a pushback. Mm-hmm. You see Disney and stuff like that. Netflix even said when they were doing the Dave Chappelle special, they said, yeah, we're doing this, and if you don't like it, you cannot work here. If you know. So it's like, that's what they should have been doing from the beginning. Yeah. But all these companies were capitulating to these people, these fucking lunatics.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, now you got midterms coming up in the States, so we'll see what happens there if Republicans take back the House and Senate.
I don't even know if the elections can be trusted anymore.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I don't know. Maybe it'll shift some stuff. I don't know if normalcy will ever sort of come back. Now I think they've all kind of been pushed.
We know it. No, there's going to be
like normalcy in politics. I mean,
unless we have a new system, like there's no, yeah, it doesn't go. I think the problem is, or one of the problems is, the government bloat, the constantly expanding of everything. Oh yeah. So I think that you start the United States originally as more of a libertarian thing, and the states have a lot of rights of their own, and it worked. Mm-hmm. It worked really well, and it became the richest country in the world, the most successful country in the world. Other countries started copying their model somewhat in their own ways because they were so successful at what they were doing. But now, at a certain point, whether that point's the year 2000, 1990, 2010, whatever, there's a certain point where they crossed a threshold of like, okay, the government's now too big. And it just kept growing. And the too big means it's just going to start to fail. It's going to start to fall apart. It's going to collapse under its own weight. And I think that's kind of a part of what we're seeing. It's too bloated. There's too much nonsense going on. And so we can't, function properly.
There is going to be some type of collapse. I mean, you can't just keep going into debt without any way out. Yeah, I know. Right?
What if we get rid of our debt?
What are they at now? 29 trillion?
Something stupid.
Yeah, 29 trillion. I don't know. The GDP of the states per year is...
It's like, what, one something?
No, it's 16 maybe? 16 trillion, something like that. I don't know. Art, help us out.
that should be an easy
yeah, it's bigger than you'd think anyway. But still, I think they're at about 2 to 1.
20.9 in 2020. Oh, that was 2020 though.
Oh, okay.
It's probably
it's going to be the same roughly. Let's say 20 trillion, right? So they're at 1.5 of annual GDP.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Which I think, so Canada...
That could be a part of the reason for the inflation.
31 trillion in the U.S. as of this week. 130% of GDP. There you go. Thanks, Art. Anyways, but so Canada was having a problem in the 90s where they hit 168% of GDP for debt, and they were talking about defaulting. It was a real big thing in the 90s. So that's why Canada is getting back up to that number again, essentially. And it's always kind of the same sort of number. It's like that 1.5 and above is the scary realm where they're like default, essentially. I think if and war always puts countries in debt. Like there's nothing you can do, right? You're putting all this money out to the war effort. I always get 9 trillion, including consumer debt. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that I wonder.
It's giving us some numbers here. 90
if
trillions, including our consumer debt.
I wonder if inflation is partly on purpose to kind of deal with that.
Well, they do. They do that to try and curb spending. And
You have to have inflation so that people don't hoard their money.
Right.
But I wonder if the hyperinflation is on purpose.
No, well, inflation makes people actually hoard their money more. It's
yeah, but it's not about people hoarding money.
Spend.
It's like, oh shit, we have this national debt that we can't handle, so we'll just make the dollar worth less, so that it's maybe easier to pay off.
Well, that just makes by devaluing the dollar, that just makes any printed dollars out worth less.
Mm-hmm.
So,
the number of dollars stays the same.
Yeah. But what I'm saying,
you owe China unless there's agreements where it's like dollars or gold or whatever, and it's based on something else. But the idea is like, oh, we owe China $1 billion. If we devalue that $1 billion by 30-40%, it's going to be.
That's
easier.
what I mean. And we end up paying it back.
We sort of erode it away.
Yeah, we pay it back through devaluing of the dollar. Yeah. There's always that. That's always an idea.
As citizens.
But we've never done this in the past where we've printed this much money, this fast. Like it's never there's no precedent. There's no precedent to set. Like we don't know. This is uncharted territory. They've never seen this before.
And it's not going well.
Right. It started quantitative easing, and then it just snowballed from there. It was like, oh shit, we got away with that. That was easy.
Yeah.
Let's just keep doing it.
COVID happens. They're like, oh, we're just gonna write people a check to stay home.
New monetary policy. Just keep printing money.
The problem with rising rates is that it creates a trade deficit since USD is reserve currency. World has to trade in USD, but it devalues other currencies. Yeah, and
exactly.
It fucks other countries over. It
so eventually,
fucks citizens over.
What could happen is you get another country's dollar becomes the reserve currency, like a Chinese whatever. What is their dollar? The yuan? Is it the one?
I think something like that.
Whatever.
Something like that. YUAN.
Yeah. But now with talk of the Chinese economy, they're talking about the Chinese economy now starting to collapse.
Oh, yeah.
Slowly. It's not going to be an overnight collapse, but
they're doing worse than the United States right now.
Yeah. Well, they went hyper building and I mean,
yeah.
They had an explosive bunch of years. So
now they're running out of people.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's a big problem. We'll see where that goes in the next.
Yeah, that's a crazy sort of thing because if you know what's happening, then it would seem like it would be something that you could kind of correct fairly quickly if you change the narrative, if you will, to have people sort of like become nationalists. And I mean, it would be easy for China to do that because they're already nationalists.
If you're importing people.
No. What I'm saying though is okay. So for example, like in the U.S., it might be tough because they've been preaching to hate the U.S. for so long now.
Yeah.
And it's like young people are like, oh, I hate this country, and in our origins. But China has never been that way. China's been very nationalistic the whole way through. So if they were to like broadcast that message out and say, hey, there's new models showing that we're going to be underpopulated. And our population is going to decline, which is going to hurt our nation. People might go, "Oh, you know what? Let's get behind."
Well, no. The issue is even if they do that, they can't bounce back from where they currently are.
Well, they can, but it would just take a cycle.
No. The issue, like, there aren't enough people, so you might have, you might be able to get a lot of babies and a lot of children, but there's going to be a huge gap.
I know what you're saying. From when people, it's like when they looked at the baby boomers.
It's going to collapse. Everything.
Well, they expected that to happen after the baby boomers, eh?
Did they?
Yeah. They expected a massive collapse. There was because when the baby boomers
Gen X.
No, so when the baby boomers after World War II, when the baby boomers they just started having kids like crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So you'd have families of like 5, 6, 7 kids, and so when those kids grew up and they started to retire, now if there weren't enough of the next generations having kids, they were expecting that there was going to be this mass exodus in the workforce. And there weren't going to be enough people to replace those all those people that
Oh,
retired.
are you talking like now?
Yeah, essentially, yeah, because now the baby
yeah.
boomers now are of age, or, you know.
Yeah, they're in the they're
Well, we're
to,
past it now. Essentially,
yeah, but
that was
a lot
happening in the early 2000s. They were worried about it
Well, I think that's when they were starting to think
because
about
they were
it,
hitting
and then
50, 60 years old, and they were
Yeah.
starting to.
Now the people are working later now, but there is an issue with skill.
Well, yeah. Well,
where
that's
there
part of it
aren't,
too,
there
right?
aren't
Skilled
people
trades
that
and
can
shit.
do,
Yeah.
there aren't people that.
No,
can
but I'm
do
saying though, it's
same
like
work,
it's like
but-
anything. It's any problem that they sort
and there
of.
is a shortage in the labor force.
Yeah, but any problem that they sort of say is going to be a big deal, like they did with the year 2000, where they were like, "Oh, there's going to be this massive issue with banking and stuff because the dates on the bank and all the accounts were going to roll back." They were worried about this massive problem with that happening. It never materialized, right? It just, so what? It was a bit of a hiccup. And
well, I
then
think
they
part
dealt
of it
with
was like a potential. Like this
I know.
could be a problem if we don't
it.
solve
Yeah, and this is what I'm
I
saying.
think we're still heading towards that in terms of retirement because people are living longer.
Yeah.
And so I think we have somewhat of an issue where there's an increase in the amount of people who are going to require government services sort of keep alive, right? They have their pensions and everything. At a certain point, it's going to be like that's going to be such a huge part of the economy that the workforce isn't actually going to be able to support it potentially because it's just too many people because they're living too long. But who knows? Who knows what will happen?
I think
there are developments too that can solve that.
Well, there's also this, and people don't factor this in. So when they say things like, underpopulation and stuff like that, automation is going to take a lot of those jobs anyway. So if population decreases, well, it already happens, right? You already see that. Like, for example, even like McDonald's, right? For example, they didn't really have as much of a hard time with the labor shortage because they were ahead of it with those machines that they were. You go in any McDonald's now and you have those automated machines for the order menu.
Yeah, you see it that there were fast food restaurants all over the place that were like closing down.
No.
early
I'm
and
saying
stuff.
that's why I said McDonald's. So McDonald's didn't get hit as hard, right? So there are certain big companies that were kind of ahead of the curves. They all this information that we get, I'm sure they're very privy to, and they have intelligent people at top spots that are predicting this kind of stuff too, and trying to stay ahead of it.
I think you could build a McDonald's right now that required 0 people.
Pretty much.
It would just cost too much to do, and so it's just about getting that cost down.
When I worked at McDonald's,
did you see the Tesla robot?
No, but hold on. Let me finish this story real quick. You're on that because I'm interested. When I worked at McDonald's a bunch of years ago, I won't say how many, but a bunch of years ago, they were talking. That was when they were changing the order system to go automated. So they were gonna get rid of, like, I think they talked about like 15% of staff and the like crew staff. They wouldn't need anymore because of this automated thing, and that was like a lot of years ago when I was working at McDonald's. That was in high school, back when I was in high school. So imagine what they're doing now, back, in the back with food prep and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So you're right. It could get to the point where you have, skeletal
which
staffs.
saves us. So if like AI can do stuff, and then you have like.
How much nicer would this planet be, on a whole, if we had the kind of population where people could actually have land again, and still live relatively close to each other? Because everybody wants to convene in the same location. That's why cities are as big as they are. People want to be around each other. You could solve
that problem with transportation if you could travel really fast.
What I'm saying, that too. But what I'm saying, though, is that you could actually have some land in the middle of a city instead of having these fucking high rises put in where you've got 3,000 people jammed in a building, because they just don't have housing or space for people in these urban.
Because people want to be.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we have enough space on the planet, but it's in places that people don't want to live. Everybody wants to live around the water. Everybody wants to live around each other. That's why you see these
big population centers.
Right.
This is the Tesla robot. This is kind of what it looks like at the current stage. They did an unveiling like last week or something.
How well does it?
Right now, it seems like it doesn't work that well.
Well, because
they didn't. The reason I say that is because they didn't demonstrate it doing anything with its hands, and that's like the main thing is that it's supposed to be able to do things with its hands really well. They did show off its navigation because it uses the same kind of autopilot technology that they have in the Teslas. So they kind of showed it walking around like an office space and stuff, and recognizing its environment and showing like all what it's generating, but they didn't show it doing stuff with its hands, which is supposed to be the thing. It's supposed to be able to, be very good with its hands. This thing would, if it works as it's supposed to, could replace a lot of people in the workforce.
Well, sure, yeah.
And it could solve that issue of if we are going to deal with depopulation of a sort of a plummeting population. This kind of technology, if it works properly, I feel like is the saving grace. But who knows where it is or how far it's gonna be.
We talked about this on a previous podcast before. Imagine having your own personal robot that you sent to work.
Yeah,
like you own the robot, so you own the stake in it. Whatever the robot is, like whatever the negotiated wage for that robot is, that's your wage. I think it would be amazing. It would you'd still have there's still work to be done, but instead of us doing it,
at a certain point, there is going to be less and less work that needs to be done.
Yeah,
and so that's going to be a weird problem to solve.
But I think that you'd have to kind of control it because you'd have people that would have the money to be able to buy thousands of robots and put them all to work. So you'd have to say, no, you can't do that. There's a limit 5 per fucking customer. We limit people buying toilet paper, right?
Or you just you just use the robots to get a kind of universal basic income where it's like, okay, you have robot labor
that's provided by the government.
You have to pay. Well, you're a company, you're McDonald's.
Sure.
And so say you're going to run a McDonald's restaurant without any people and it's just going to be 5 robots in there 24/7. You got to pay for every hour, you got to pay those robots a certain amount. Say they just it's $20 an hour. That
goes to the government to pay
and that money goes into the government, which gets divided evenly to everybody maybe who doesn't have a job.
Sure.
But then it's like, do you give it to people who don't have a job, or do you give it to people who don't have a job but are looking for a job?
Yeah.
So that way you don't kind of just encourage people.
That's one way to do it.
While we have it, but yeah, something like that.
Wouldn't another easy way to do it be that the government gives everyone a robot?
Yeah, you could do that.
And then,
if there's enough robots.
Yeah, and then so what you could do is maybe then if you wanted to, if you were
the government just plugs you into the.
If you were savvy enough, if you're savvy enough, and you use your money to say buy upgrades and buy different things for the robot to make it better and smarter and more capable, then your robot now makes more money. You still pay taxes just like if you were earning them. It goes to the government, so your taxation system stays the same, but the government provides that one robot to you. And then if you need it repaired or anything like that, you just have almost like a government warranty on it. So they'll fix all of the major components. But any of the updates and software updates and all that kind of shit that you did to it, that's on you. We don't cover that. We only cover the powertrain of the robot.
You're gonna be able to do something like that probably with Teslas, with the robo-taxi thing.
Yeah.
Because this is what Elon Musk has said is the idea is that you own your Tesla, and then you could, for example, go to work and then send your Tesla out to basically Uber people around all day. Or until its battery's low enough that it can't get you home if it doesn't come back, and then it's going to earn you money while it does that. Obviously Tesla's going to take a cut, but you don't have to do anything, and you're going to be earning money because you own the Tesla that's Ubering people around.
That's pretty cool.
You could, so you could buy 100 Teslas, and
there's stuff like that where you can passively invest in stuff. It already exists. I mean,
there's plenty that you could.
Yeah,
but.
Like even
vending machines.
Yeah, there you go. Well, but you still got to fill them and service them and shit. True. But there's stuff where you can literally buy into something and it's almost like an investment where you buy into it and you're getting a like a dividend type thing. But there are other things that aren't that.
Yeah.
They've been around for a while. People have ideas for stuff like that all the time where it's almost like a group share. On something like that. I think I think you could still have the same system we have and incorporate that into the system. I think what that would do, I think it would keep our system, because I think our system's good for the most part. I mean, it needs some tweaks, but our capitalistic system is good, but it would free up people for time. And now you could have time to do different things and enrich your lives more instead of spending 1/3 of your life working.
We won't need, I think it'll gradually sort of progress towards that, where it's like at a certain point, we only need people to work 7-hour work days are fine, 6-hour work days
or less,
are fine, 4-day work
or you
weeks.
work when you want to work.
Yeah,
like it's
4
now
hours,
labels
or it's in units of work. This is what who
like if you're covered somehow, and the reason why I don't like UBI is just because nothing's being done for it. But if you factor in a robot into that, now the UBI is covered by the robots that are working. So there's an exchange of goods for service. You know what I mean? But if you were able to free up that time for people and they could just pursue things they wanted to do,
if you could essentially pay people per unit of work is in some way, I think that would spike productivity and give a lot of people a lot of more freedom, and you'd have like the people who work a lot,
you'd have innovation, you'd have creativity, you'd have all these different things because our minds would be free of this shit.
I don't know if it was on Joe Rogan's podcast or it was on Tim Pool's podcast or whatever. They were talking about how a person at a telecommunications company, I forget which company they were working at, and they said that their experience working there was they were kind of like this. They were given units of work to do. You do, say, 15 units of work, whatever that equals in their business, and they do it, and that would be all their work for the day. And so they'd finish it, and so they'd be like, I want to do something else. Like, I want to be innovative. I want to, be productive within this company here. And they were like, no, just sit around. Like, if you do that, you're gonna make everybody else look bad. And so it's like that kind of thing stifles innovation. But
already making fun of your Tesla.
You wanted to talk about black holes. What's this?
I did, yeah.
What's this article?
All right, I'm gonna read this article.
Let me try to pull it up.
I can't because it's I found it on Facebook. So I'll give you the let me see if there's a URL. What is the URL for this? Try typing this in. blog.sci, SCI, nature.com, and then every black hole, what's it say? Every black hole contains another universe. If it pop up. If not, I can read it.
Well, you can start.
Oh, there it is, right there.
You can start reading it on there, and I'll get it up because this may or may not load it on time. Who knows?
Maybe. Okay, so this article just says that. I'll just read it. This is, every black hole contains another universe, so they're predicting this. So it says, like part of a cosmic Russian doll, our universe may be perfectly nested inside a black hole that is itself part of a larger universe. In turn, all the black holes found so far in our universe, from the microscopic to the supermassive, may be ultimate doorways into alternate realities. According to a mind-bending new theory, a black hole is actually a tunnel between universes, a type of wormhole. The matter the black hole attracts doesn't collapse into a single point, as has been predicted, but rather gushes out a white hole at the other end of the black hole, the theory goes. In a paper published in the journal Physics Letters, B, Indiana University physicist Nikodem Poplawski presents new mathematical models of the spiraling motion of matter falling into a black hole. His equations suggest such wormholes are viable alternatives to the space-time singularities that Albert Einstein predicted to be at the center of black holes. According to Einstein's equations for general relativity, singularities are created whenever matter in a given region gets too dense, as would happen at the ultra-dense heart of a black hole. Einstein's theory suggests singularities take up no space, are indefinitely dense, and are infinitely hot, a concept supported by numerous lines of indirect evidence, but still so outlandish that many scientists find it hard to accept. If Poplawski is correct, they may no longer have to. According to the new equations, the matter black holes absorb and seemingly destroy is actually expelled and becomes the building blocks for galaxies, stars, and planets in another reality. The notion of black holes as wormholes could explain certain mysteries in modern cosmology, Poplawski said. For example, the Big Bang Theory says the universe started as a singularity, but scientists have no satisfying explanation for how such a singularity might have formed in the first place. If our universe was birthed by a white hole instead of a singularity, Poplawski said, it would solve this problem of black hole singularities and also the Big Bang singularity. Wormholes might also explain gamma ray bursts, the second most powerful explosions in the universe after the Big Bang. Gamma ray bursts occur at the fringes of the known universe. They appear to be associated with supernovae or star explosions in faraway galaxies, but their exact sources are a mystery. So Poplawski proposes that the bursts may be discharges of matter from alternative universes. The matter, he says, might be escaping into our universe through supermassive black holes / wormholes at the hearts of those galaxies, though it's not clear how that would be possible. So it's kind of a crazy idea, but who knows, he said. There is at least one way to test Poplawski's theory. Some of our universe's black holes rotate, and if a universe was born inside a similarly revolving black hole, then our universe should have inherited the parent object's rotation. If future experiments reveal that our universe appears to rotate in a preferred direction, it would be indirect evidence supporting his wormhole theory. So the wormhole theory may also help explain why certain features of our universe deviate from what theory predicts, according to physicists. Based on the standard model of physics, after the Big Bang, the curvature of the universe should have increased over time, so that now 13.7 billion years later, we should seem to be sitting on the surface of a closed spherical universe, but observations show the universe appears flat in all directions. What's more, data on light from the very early universe show that everything just after the Big Bang was a fairly uniform temperature. So that would mean that the farthest objects we see on opposite horizons of the universe were once close enough to interact and come to equilibrium, like molecules of gas in a sealed chamber. Again, observations don't match predictions because the objects farthest from each other in the known universe are so far apart that the time it would take to travel between them at the speed of light exceeds the age of the universe. So I'm not going to keep reading. This goes on for a while. So what do you think?
That's an interesting idea.
It sounds pretty cool because realistically, they've always had this dark matter and black holes have always kind of escaped scientists. They have theories on them and they can't really
Yeah, because we don't know what's going on there.
Right,
You
exactly.
just see this thing, this massive gravitational source, and you're like, well, what is that? Kind of looks like a hole, so we'll call it a black hole.
What I like about this
and then the
theory,
math breaks down too when you try to calculate what's going on
Yeah.
in something that's like that. You know, it doesn't really the math.
What I like about this theory, though, is it gives an answer to a couple other things that we can't explain. You know, when you're talking about where this Big Bang came from, you know, like just all of a sudden a singularity turned into.
But that just pushes that problem down the road to like where'd the first thing ever come from, right?
Sure.
Because that whole problem is just like, well, what was before that, or what caused that? And if you can choose what caused the Big Bang, it's like, okay, well then there was a universe before, but how did that exist? Well, a Big Bang, well, and then you just follow it up, and it might be infinite. You know, time could just be
a construct, or
not really a construct, just more of an illusion than we can really understand.
That's what I meant by construct. Like we just kind of we perceive things in a certain way, so we just call it time. We're like, oh,
but infinity is more, I don't know, it's complicated stuff.
Well, we can't fathom that, right?
No, we can't even start to wrap our heads around this, right? Like, pull up the equations and we're like,
it's the monkey brain,
what's
man.
that symbol?
Yeah, it's the monkey brain. How do you
wrap your head around the fucking cosmos?
We don't even believe shit we see sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't trust your lying eyes.
Yeah, well, sometimes.
But you can't really, which is funny because your eyes do lie to you.
And they correct things.
Yeah. So
fucking crazy. You don't see. I mean, you definitely don't see. Like, what your reality that you're perceiving, you're seeing, and feeling is, like it's your brain is creating that, right? Like it's how do I say it's signals
like reflections of
go
what
into
you're
your
seeing.
eyes, and then your brain computes that data and produces an image, and it corrects that image, right? They say that's like the way that the optics of your eyes work is an upside down image, so it flips it already, and so like it corrects it, and then it's within a certain range that you could perceive, and then so there you go. What's going on outside of that range, we can't see anyway, and then everything touch, feel like it's just all signals, like that we perceive as like, oh, that's a fabric table, but it's like. That's what the monkey sort of perceives. Like,
yeah, it's the limitations are. It's all based on this. Like, what's the computing power of our brain? And if it's in this physical realm, it's constructed in this physical realm. How is it to perceive anything outside of the physical that it knows?
And it
to
can't
perceive?
even perceive stuff within it, right? You ever see those, or when you were in school, that they play that video? You got a whole bunch of dancing gorillas, or no, you got a bunch of people playing basketball, and like the dancing gorilla walks through, and you don't notice it until they point it out to you. You're like, oh, how do I not notice that?
That's what illusion is.
It's like right in front of you.
That's what illusionists prey on. They prey on how our minds don't work that way. Some people. Like there's a very small subset of people that aren't tricked with those kinds of things for whatever reason. I don't know why their brain seems to, or something. Their brain seems to pick up reality a little different than everyone else's, but which would also explain things like psychics or clairvoyance or these kinds of things. More, where we all look at it, that people that don't have that kind of call it gift or ability.
They don't experience that.
Yeah, so we would go,
assume it doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist. Yeah. Not to say that there aren't a fucking shit ton of charlatans out there that are lying about it, but I think there are true, people that truly have gifts, abilities that, most of us don't have, right? So, anyways, it's interesting shit.
Yeah. We are over an hour.
Yeah, something cool to end on, at least, I think, anyway.
Expand the mind a little bit.
Yeah, before we leave.
What the hell is reality?
What did I already say there? Did you say something?
No. Nobody really knows the time dilation within a black hole, and you can't know unless you were there.
Well, that's the thing about black holes. We don't know anything about them.
Yeah, except
all we know is a light doesn't escape them.
Yeah, they have a strong enough gravitational field to pull the light in. That's all we really know.
That's pretty fucking nuts.
They seem to be very massive in terms of like actual mass. There's a giant one at the center of our galaxy.
How cool would it be if you just, well, not even cool, but how funny would it be if we just found out all of a sudden and we were like, it was just something simple, like some simple explanation to the whole thing. We were like, oh, fuck. How did that escape us? How did that fucking escape us?
Yeah.
Well, we've been trying to figure out this shit.
It's like the aliens come down and it's like, guys, it's 42.
It's just 42.
It's just 42.
Like, what the fuck? Like, how could you skip over that? It's just 42. Guys, that's it.
I'm gonna watch 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh yeah, dude.
Finally, tonight, like 50 years late.
And then let me know what you think of, Dave.
68's 55 years.
What are you doing, Dave? Yeah. What are you watching, Dave?
I'm watching you.
That robot's creepy though. Just the way he talks is fucking creepy.
It's a 1960s.
Wasn't it 70s?
68.
Oh, 68.
It's a 1960s interpretation of an artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Why does he have to sound like a fucking pedophile or something?
They thought about technology differently back then.
Hey, Dave.
We have robots that talk to us now.
Dave, do you want me to touch your penis, Dave? I'll touch your penis, Dave.
No,
I'm a robot.
We already did that twice today.
I can perfectly touch your penis. I've learned it.
I know what you like.
I know exactly what you like. I can make you come in 3.4 seconds.
That's my record.
All right. Well, like, share, follow us, set your notification so when we come on late, which we do sometimes, but the best things come to those who wait.
That's true.
And
the best things.
Listen, we're awful. But if you wait long enough, something good could come after us.
Maybe.
You never know. Watching us might just make you look at us and say, those guys are so bad, that everything I do after this is just great.
That's entirely possible.